All right, guys. Yo, what's up? Welcome back to Sobriety University podcast. Really appreciate you guys tuning in and waiting a bit. We had to set some things up behind the scene. But today we have a really exciting guest. Tristan, welcome to the channel.
Thank you. So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So I'm really excited for this one, and excitement is a good anxiety. But today we're
It
going to be
is.
learning how to master your anxiety. And although maybe after watching this podcast, you won't be a pro, but you'll have tools in place that you can implement on a day to day basis to be able to stay calm in stressful situations. So, Tristan, like we just met a few days ago, so I really don't know much about you either. Can you kind of share with who you are and what brought you to the
Sure.
internet space?
Woohoo. Well, I'm so glad we connected. I absolutely love what you're doing over there at the Sobriety University. It's so cool, and I think so needed. Addiction is such an interesting thing because we're addicted to so many different things. We can even be addicted to emotional states of being. And yeah, so for me, interesting long journey, but just for the sake of time, I'll keep it in a little nutshell. I grew up with chronic asthma. So I was that sick kid with a asthma pump around my neck. And yeah, through going from doctor to doctor, I kind of realized that there was an emotional component to the physical symptoms that I was experiencing. It wasn't just physical. Had a lot of trauma going on, a very unstable household, grew up with an addictive mom, with an addict mom. So yeah, I started really delving deep into this connection between the body and the mind and how we can think a thought and have, a physical symptom appear. And yeah, that kind of led me on a quest to find really powerful different modalities, different tools to, yeah, the word master is interesting because I feel like it's instead of mastering, it's really coming into communion and coming into integration with these aspects with the mind, with the body and spirit.
Okay.
And so, yeah, for the last decade or so, I've had my own business, the Life Aligned Academy, and just recently sort of stepped in, like I was saying to you earlier, just stepped into the online space. Mostly it's just been one to one coaching and really supporting my clients from going from their default settings, those subconscious programs that were given in our early years, to really designing, becoming a conscious designer of our reality and of our states of being. So yeah, my area of absolute passion and fascination is in emotional regulation and in our belief constructs because these two are really intricately woven together. So yeah.
So, at what age did you start to realize, like, holy crap, I can actually, have a say over my emotions and anxiety and stuff like that?
I had quite a tumultuous my teen years were quite interesting. I think, everyone watching can relate to some degree. I think I was really quite a tortured teen. I had eating disorders, cutting, all kinds of things to just try and yeah, I felt so numb. I just felt so completely and utterly numb that whatever I could do to give me, yeah, some sense of aliveness. And I think with the asthma, it was quite interesting because I realized that there was obviously it's such a physical experience. I'm having an asthma attack. It's kind of like, like a panic attack. I can't breathe. My lungs are closing. Biologically, I'm freaking out. I'm shutting down. And I think the more times it happened and the more times I was able to kind of catch and recognize what was going on, I could, number one, I started to control my heart rate by catching my breathing and then recognizing like, hey, what's actually behind this? And it was when I was sick, it was the only time that I got, I'm the oldest of three kids. And it was the only time I really got attention. And
Mm,
so, I mean, it was such a hard pill to swallow that because it was like, well, obviously I'm very sick and the sickness is very physical and very real. But on a deeply emotional level, it was this connection of like, this me being sick is the way that I get my mom's undivided attention and her care. And so it was quite interesting to start to notice that. So around about 15, 16, started seeing that again, not much control over it at all. And that's, I think, what led to just wanting to, that feeling of out of control led me to be like, okay, I want to understand this shit. Like, I'm sorry, sorry for swearing.
go
I
ahead.
want to understand. I want to understand what's going on. I want to understand that, it's kind of like if your computer's glitching out, you want to know what updates to install so that it runs more smoothly. And yeah, our minds and our bodies Once we figure out what is this little mechanism, what are we trying to get? We're all trying to have a need met, like with an addiction. We're trying to have maybe the nervous system calm for a minute, just trying to bliss out for a second. There's always a need behind a compulsion or an action. So yeah, round about that age, if that answers the question.
No, that's so true, Tristan. And even today, like having been off drugs and alcohol for a while, I still find like last night, for example, I have a bit of an addiction to TV, to watching YouTube, ironically. So I'm kind of like a drug dealer here. But and like, binge watching stuff. And for me, that takes me out of the present moment, that takes me out of my body. And I'm still struggling with how to not, engage in that. And I didn't last night because I knew we had this podcast. I wanted to be super present. So, big win. But last night,
Woohoo!
woo, I was just sitting there like on the couch, just like trying so hard not to look. I'm just like, don't do it. Don't do it. So I
What?
really relate with that, like wanting to seek that relief outside of oneself
Mhm.
for sure.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
What do you feel comes up for you? So that sort of feeling of like wanting to watch something, like you said, it helps take me out of the present moment.
Mm.
What do you feel you're wanting to escape from when you do that? What do you feel like? Is there maybe an uncomfortable feeling in the body, or what's kind of behind that desire to reach out?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good question. I think a couple things. Sometimes it's when things are going really well, and there's that like, I guess TV was my escape as a kid. So
Mm,
that's what I got comfort from. So there's almost this like, I start to feel excitement, which turns into some anxiety or just like, not disease, and then not disease, but dis-ease,
this ease, yeah,
dis-ease, which is disease. And then from there, wanting to almost like have someone comfort me for it. Like, give me a pat on the back. And TV used to do that, right? You'd
yeah.
be like, hey, I'm always here for you, man. I
Mm,
got you. I think another thing, and this is something I've come to realize recently, it's oftentimes like just the truth of existence, which is kind of deep, right? Like we come to this world, we do our best, and then we return back to which we came. And that can be kind of like, whoa, like
Existential crisis, mind melts. Yes.
yeah, and like I've come to peace with it, like the fact that we all die and stuff. And sometimes in the moment you're just like, like this is the like what's the point? I think that's what it is. And I could just kind of wanting to forget about it. So
Mm,
that's
mm.
what comes up.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that so honestly. That really is the basis of anxiety. Anxiety is that alarm bell, the body's way of saying, hey, you're not in the present moment. And it's interesting because when we have certain addictions or compulsions, and like you said with TV, for me was certain foods that gave me that like granny cooking with granny, so that
Mm,
sense of cake. So when I was feeling really empty or scared or lonely, that feeling of like reaching for a piece of chocolate cake would give me that hug. And we all have those things. And I think a lot of us see addiction as this bad, negative, terrible thing. But when we really break it down to its little components, it's this just desperate need that needs to be met. And anxiety specifically is quite interesting because while it's really vague, and I think a lot of us, we don't actually have the emotional terminology to express what it is that we're really feeling. So we use this term, this umbrella, like I feel anxious.
mm,
My heart's racing, like you said earlier, and I love that distinction because anxiety and excitement biologically are the exact same process. The heart rate speeds up, palms get a little sweaty, get butterflies in the tummy, and the only difference really is the filter. So excitement's like, woohoo, this is going to be awesome. Anxiety's like, holy crap, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. This is terrible. And, really being able to catch that lens and catch that filter is hugely beneficial. But essentially, that feeling of anxiety, imagine it like a smoke alarm is going off.
mm,
A lot of us reach out for the remote control, for the food, for whatever it is. And it's kind of like you're taking the batteries out of the smoke detector. It's
okay.
not sorting the fire out, like, hey, I'm wanting to come back in here, be with me. Body, something's going on, either emotionally, mentally, something is happening, and we're wanting to pull away. And the more we pull away, the more intense. And you find like, have you ever had a panic attack? like a full
I have.
blown
Yeah.
hardcore panic attack. Okay. Have you noticed that after the panic attack, there may have been some guilt and shame, but like you generally felt a bit better?
Oh, yeah.
You notice that?
It's like
Okay.
a high.
There's like there's like a high and there's a tremendous release. So what's going on there is all these emotions, these very vague, we're saying we feel anxious, but we're actually scared. We're overwhelmed. We are sad. We're freaking angry. We're bitter. We're hurting. Like there's all this other stuff going on inside, and we're ignoring it. Anxiety alarm gets louder and louder until it becomes so overwhelming. We have this panic attack, but then there's this release because for a moment we've really come into we've let the body sob, which is a natural way of releasing energy in motion emotion. It's just stored up energy, right? So the more we can kind of get in there and tap it out, and this is obviously in an unconscious way because a panic attack doesn't feel great at all for anyone watching who's experienced it. There are wonderful other ways and tools which we'll talk about in a minute that can help you to decompress
Mm.
and release. But the point of access is coming back into the present moment, which feels really freaking hard to do with, especially in today's world where we have so many distractions. Like it's so easy to just like reach for your phone, it's
Yeah.
like it's right there, it's there all the time. And then we find ourselves an hour later, whether it's binge watching YouTube or doom scrolling, and we haven't really sat with ourselves or
Mm.
like try to understand what was going on for us. So yeah.
That's beautiful.
Have you noticed any like particular triggers? Like if you said earlier that you've got like a lot of big up and coming changes going on for you. Do you notice for you what activates anxiety? Like what makes you how do you notice it in your body? What does it feel like? How are you like, hey, I feel anxious right now? How do you recognize that?
That's a good question, and I'm gonna got a couple comments here from the
Awesome.
husband. This is my business partner, and
Hey.
this next comment's too funny. So,
He's tired of me nagging him. Okay.
I
That's
think
called
that HUDs is the trigger for my anxiety, but
Huds,
there's some
Huds,
other
you and
things.
I, bud, we gotta talk. We gotta.
Oh, man, so funny. So, yeah, I think that's a lot of new change, right? And for a long time and why I was in addiction so much is because I loved the comfort zone. I loved knowing what was going to happen. I love that certainty. And once you get rolling with life, basically, life starts to become more uncertain. Like, I don't know what's going to come the next day. And I think what's happening is I'm just getting used to it. Like, my mind, like, my soul is all on board. It's like, dude, this is awesome. Like, this is what we worked for. This is why we got clean. But the mind and that ego is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This isn't, what we're used to. So there's a bit of resistance. And I think some other triggers, and I'm gonna keep bringing it back to
Mm,
to death. One of my big anxiety is that I have a big move coming up. We have a lot of cool things going on behind the scenes. There's this fear that straight up, like I'm gonna die and get in a car accident, and I'll never get to experience it. So
mhm.
I find this happens a lot before something that's really exciting and new coming. Like I almost tiptoe around because like I'm like, just don't die. This is gonna be so cool. Just don't freaking die. It's like
Mm.
I don't know where that's from, but maybe it's just human. But,
Well, yes. Did you, growing up, did you hear your parents like say, be careful a lot? Be careful of that. Don't do that. Be careful.
God, I
Or
have to
anything
still.
around that.
I think there was a element of caution in our home.
Mm.
Mhm.
So it's interesting, attention goes, or energy goes where attention goes, right? So the anxiety is being triggered because you're thinking of don't die. But Joel, don't think of a pink elephant. Like whatever you do, pink elephant with purple spots, don't think of it.
Mhm.
Don't think of it. I'm telling you right now, do not think of it, please. Okay. So when we're thinking of don't die, the subconscious doesn't read that. So the folk, your imagination, everything now gets full access to all the horrific ways you're going to die,
Okay.
and then we're spinning out. Okay. And there's also an element of survival in this, like that fear. I like to see fear as our guardian. It's like a protector. It's there to keep us safe, but it's also there to show us where those limitations are, whether it be a limiting belief, yeah, or just something kind of blocking that full, like, juicy, delicious expansion we're wanting to like step into, it's there as an indicator, you know? So
Mm,
you said earlier that it kind of comes up for you, the anxiety comes up when it's all this new. And a lot there's so much cool research around when we're in survival mode, which I think a lot of us operate in, and
mm.
we aren't even aware of the fact that we're just like running our poor little adrenals dry, just in go mode. What's next? The next big thing, next. And so we're in this very activated, our nervous system is completely activated, we're in survival mode, and survival mode goes, hey, I need to keep you safe, and safe equals familiar. So if we're stepping into the unknown, hey, I can't help you there, buddy. Like,
Mm.
you're on your own if you go down that road. And so from the that survival mode, like you said, like your soul is fully on board, because soul knows that you're limitless, you're expansive, you can't die. Energy can't be
Cool.
destroyed, it can only change form, right? But that's soul mode, divine mode, creative mode, let's say. Survival mode goes, we need to keep you in the, I like to call it the uncomfortable comfort zone, the familiar,
Mm,
the
yeah,
known,
100%.
right?
I'm so glad you bring that up because, like, when I work with people for addiction, they're in that exact mode you just talked about. It's
Yeah.
killing them, but they're just so used to it, it's comfortable at the same time. And it's just this
Yeah.
weird, yeah,
So
that's
yeah, the big thing there is being able to really recognize, we have such a high speed, more culture, everything is bigger, better, faster, and
mhm,
we're not designed biologically, we're not designed for long periods of stress. Like, if you look at a deer who runs in front of a truck, right? They either freeze or they run off, but then they go and shake it off. And they'll go
yeah,
back and you'll see them 10 minutes later grazing in a pasture like nothing happened. Our brains don't work like that, right? So we're being activated, but then we're replaying the same scenario. The truck, the truck, the truck, the truck,
oh
the
god,
truck, the truck,
yeah,
the truck, the truck, the truck. And so the body just keeps, even though the event has passed, maybe like you're already in the future, you've moved, the move was successful, everything was great, but we could still have this, replaying, what if I die now? What if I die now? What if I die now?
mhm,
Okay. So we're wanting to recognize that's really coming from that survival mode. And I
okay,
don't know, I like to get grateful for these different aspects. We're so quick to judge or condemn aspects of ourselves, like even addictive behavior. We're like, oh, it's so disgusting. How could I do this? As opposed to really, I don't know, loving it into to integration, seeing
mm,
it that anxious part of you is the part that's really trying to keep you safe. Like it loves you enough. It wants you to be here. um, does that mean that you don't move around or don't do anything outside the comfort zone? No. But really having compassion for the aspect that feels the anxiety or feels the craving or aversion, whatever it is,
mhm,
I think is a really important part of coming into alignment essentially with ourselves. Whatever we're rejecting, whatever we're resisting is going to persist and
mm.
get louder and more intense.
I love it. That's fantastic. Yeah, some good points there. Eckhart Tolle, he had a chapter in his book, The New Earth, and he
Mhm,
talks about how a duck, it'll get in a fight with another duck, and after they fight, they'll just like flap their wings really quick, and just like all
mm,
that energy gets released, and then they just float on. So that's a great reminder. It's almost like a blessing and a curse. Why we're that we get to think and we get to have memories, right? I would say it's
mhm.
more of a blessing than a curse, but
Yeah,
um,
that's
it
fixed.
it
Frame of
makes
reference, right? Mhm,
yeah, yep. And that other part you mentioned about, loving those parts that are torn. I'm sure you've heard of parts therapy, like,
mhm.
the family
Yeah,
systems. Yeah, I
yeah.
just got into that, like, probably, like, 6 months ago, and it was so powerful. So thank you for the reminder, Tristan. Uh,
Pleasure.
it's
Yeah,
it's and the part I had a lot of teenage parts, like you, I had some
the
trauma in
rebel.
teenage years. Yep.
Mhm,
And once I started to show them love and just like, "Hey, I got you, like, it's okay," those parts integrated and I became more whole. So I think after this little coaching you gave me, which which you can invoice me for afterwards, it
from
really
the house,
oh,
babe.
nice. It really made me realize, okay, this anxious part of me that I've been, running away from, that I've been ashamed of, that isn't we have a channel as well on masculinity and becoming, leveling up as a man, and I've been like, that's not a part of masculinity, right? Like you can't be doing that. And so I've been pushing that away. And I think, this last few days is like that part's like, hey man, like, dude, like I know you have this amazing
Give
trip,
me a hug.
uh,
Yeah.
and you might not see me for a while. Just please, please, like, please look at me. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's so important. I do a lot of big basis of the work that I do is parts integration. So we meet the four aspects of self: that inner child, the inner critic. I'm sure we're all well versed in the inner critic, and the inner saboteur, that the teen. And each of these aspects are developed at different stages of our lives. First 7 years, then 7 to 14, and then our teen years. And then we all have that inner sage, like you said, the soul's on board. It's that aspect that's like, yeah, let's go for it. Like there's a bigger thing out there for us. And the more we bring those other parts home and let them feel safe, because really at the basis of anxiety, like the antithesis of the anxiety is safety, is feeling safe. And what better way to feel safe in your body than when all parts are welcome, when every emotion, when every thought, when every aspect of you is safely home, where they need to be able to express themselves. If that feeling is coming up, like a child, there's yeah, we could that's a whole other podcast. But
yeah,
a
right,
lot of us have been sleep trained, right? So you're left in another room to kind of cry, and the idea is you learn to self-regulate, which is, I'm probably going to get some comments on this, but the baby learns to regulate when they're close to the parent. That's how our nervous systems sync. And so for a lot of us, I know older generations specifically, and I think, our generation, I know I was as well. So you're kind of left alone in that really vulnerable state. And that's imprinted. It's completely like in your blueprint. That feeling of when I feel a big emotion, when I feel like I can't deal with something, I'm going to be left to figure it out by myself. And that's, I mean, it's quite heartbreaking when you think of it like that, because you would, I don't know, I've got two kids and I haven't been able to let them cry it out because it's just too painful. And the idea of bringing that aspect close and holding it there and being like, you're safe, you're okay, you're safe, you're okay, everything's going to be okay. Like, we don't have those little voices in our mind. We have that, like, come on, put on your big boy pants, boys don't cry. Like, we have all of these other messages that we've received. And yeah, this work, I truly feel, just because we didn't get it, we can't really use that as an excuse anymore. We're now grown-ups and we're sovereign beings, and we can choose even when it feels like we can't. But I think it's one of the most important types of work to do, is really bringing all of those parts home. So I do a lot of work with different emotions, and each one kind of reframing it to, yeah, to feel like it's not something against you. Like, fear is not there to scare you. Like, anger is not there to, like, make you feel pissed off. Sadness isn't there to, like, make you feel depressed. They are little messages, signals about how you are interpreting the world around you. And the more tools you have, the more vocabulary you have to be able to understand those messages. Again, we're coming back to safety. And anxiety is that the opposite, is feeling so unsafe, so completely and utterly overwhelmed in our bodies. A lot of us have had all kinds of things, even like a hiding, for example. You get smacked and then you're told I love you 5 minutes later. Like, it's super
mm,
confusing to our biology, to our bodies. It's like, I love you, but I'm going to punish you. So
mhm.
we've kind of got all of these really mixed messages when it comes to, like, so let's try something for a minute. Take a minute, and I want you to just see, for you and whoever's watching, if you're watching here now or later on, what does the feeling of safe feel like in your body when you feel completely and utterly held, supported, just completely safe? What And I want you to first, so I'm going to do it with you, Joel, if you don't mind, just as a little example to kind of work through it. So when you feel that feeling of safety, is it easy to access or does it feel hard to access? There's no right or wrong. We're just trying to see.
Right now, it feels easy.
Feels easy. Okay. So when you feel safe, where in your body do you feel like that safe feels the strongest? And I want you to just take your hand there
It's it's behind my eyes.
behind your eyes. Okay. So we're just going to place your hands there for a minute. Just place your hands. We're just going to take a nice deep breath in here. And I want you to see if you can move that sensation. So, is that sensation behind your eyes, is it warm or cold or lukewarm?
Warm.
Okay, it's warm. Is it still or is it moving?
It's pretty still.
It's pretty still. Okay. So, I want us to take a deep breath in, and I want you to see if just by thought alone, you can allow that feeling of safe to start to move in whichever direction it wants to first. But we're going to move and we're going to see if we can move it all the way down the body. We're going to stretch safe into the fingertips, all the way down our torso, our spine. And as you do, just going to bring your arms sort of down to your lap, just keeping your eyes closed again. I want you to see how far you can spread that sensation of safety. Just completely held, completely safe. Everything's okay. I just breathe into that for a moment. And you feel it stretching into the fingers and toes, the top of your head. Is there any part that it feels like it's not wanting to kind of flow into all the way? Any part that feels like it's resisting the safe?
Absolutely. It stopped
Okay.
right here.
Ooh, okay. So let's just bring our hand up to the chest for a minute. And I want you to let this part know that it's safe to feel safe. It's okay to feel safe. And I want you to notice maybe there's a little story that's coming up there, maybe a little voice, something that's saying why we can't let safety into this chest area here. Just notice, just observe, you're just observing it. And I want you to notice what happens. So as we confront it, so that's where the resistance was. We were able to move elsewhere, but this chest area, there was a resistance. So what's coming up in your body as you sit with the feeling? Do you feel like you're trying to get away from it? Do you feel like you can sit with it? Is it uncomfortable? Is it comfortable? What's
It's
going on?
uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. Okay. And when it feels uncomfortable, what's the natural inclination? Like, what are we wanting to do? Do you want to pull away from it? Resist it?
I think emotionally, I start to pull away a little bit, and then my mind comes in and is trying to figure it out.
Okay. hmm So drop out of the mind, and I want you to place the same way you felt that safety behind your eyes. I want you to just drop fully into the chest for a minute. So out of the head and into the chest, into the heart. And just allow all those thoughts to be there, but they're like clouds in the sky. You know, when you're a kid and you're just lying up, looking up at the sky, and the clouds change shape and form, and they don't hold shape for very long. You're like, oh, there's a dragon, and then it moves. Okay, so I want you to allow the thoughts to just be like that, but just stay with the sensation. Stay with the sensation in your chest. Take a deep breath in. Just let your body know that it's okay to be feeling whatever it is you're feeling right now. It's okay. The resistance is okay. All okay. Take a deep breath in. And we're just going to very lightly with your fingertips, you're just going to tap very gently on this area. So just tapping with the fingertips on the chest. You can go as hard or light as you want. Just really just to bring the awareness into the body space, out of the head. You're very brave for doing this in front of everyone. So thank you. I commend your bravery. Just take a moment and we're just gonna kind of rub it a little. Just let it know that it's okay for showing up a bit vulnerably. Okay, so you went there. How did that feel coming Were you able to move out of the mind and into the space, into the chest a little?
I was.
Okay. And how did it feel? What came up? Was there an emotion that came up for you? Was there something that came up for you as soon as you landed here?
So it went back and forth between
Mm.
resistance, and there was a moment where that resistance dropped. And I really felt that just being safe in the body, um, the resistance came back. It like, again, it almost felt too good. It was
Too good.
like, and
Ooh.
yeah, yeah, and the since the mind lost control because it was no longer thinking, the
Mm.
mind came. I felt the mind. I noticed the mind coming back and being like, "Hey, man, like, whoa, 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 whoa," like
This we
almost like,
can't do this, not safe. This not we can't do this.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So what is that relationship between so control?
mm,
So control and anxiety are thank you so much. Thank you for doing that with
thank you.
me. I'll show you another few little techniques just now, but just that, just bringing presence into the space that we resist is like you I mean, I could feel just kind of we're kind of synced up here a little bit and notice your breathing shift, your shoulders drop down, your kind of head relax. Like as soon as you drop in, everything starts to change. Your whole state of being changes, right? So when we're staying up in the mind, you've used the word control a few times, right? So it's like, I need to be in control. I need to be in control. So anxiety kicks in if I right? Don't feel in control. But what are you actually in control of? What do you have control over? Be honest.
I guess moving,
hmm
being able to
So
move,
actions, yeah.
uh, what I say.
Your
Uh,
words, yeah.
I've learned now that I don't have control over my thinking all the time. It's
Okay. But you can. It's a muscle. It's like going to the gym. You can, yeah.
um,
hmm
yeah, I think those are the big ones.
Okay. And your intent. Okay. So our intention, our words, our actions, our behaviors. Okay. And the feelings, right? Feelings are just energy in motion. They're just little signals. They're coming up to be witnessed. It actually only takes 90 seconds for an emotion to move through the body. How crazy is that?
Uh,
We literally re-trigger it, and then become almost addicted to the neuropeptides that are released when we feel a certain feeling.
okay,
But the actual feeling, I feel the feeling, so there was resistance. Okay. Stop resisting the resistance. What happens to resistance when you stop resisting resistance?
it goes away.
It goes away.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's holding the story of anxiety? Like I said, it's just such an umbrella term. We're holding the story, we're holding the narrative. So I want to just sort of touch on a few ways that we do this, right? So the big one is we create an identity around being an anxious person.
Mm,
And so I'm going to take a wild guess here. And you, especially, have kind of like coming from being an addict, that feeling of being out of control,
mm.
right? Like having your behaviors take control over you. That control has been an anchor. It's like a safety point, right? Like an anchor for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
It's like if I'm on this crazy ocean, the one thing that I can do is I can drop my anchor where it feels safe. Okay, so there's this
Mm,
idea of control. But the control brings with it a lot of resistance because instead of just allowing and recognizing that the true control is dropping into the body, dropping in, feeling what you're feeling, stop resisting the resistance, just feel it for a minute, you won't die. A lot of times we don't go there because we feel like it's so completely overwhelming that it will consume us. And actually the opposite is true. As soon as we go there, it shifts. Like you so beautifully showed us there. Even though the mind is coming back, like I said, it's a practice. Okay. But it's very much this identity that we create. So I hear a lot of people say, I'm just an anxious person. That's just who I am. I'm just
mm.
anxious, or I have a tendency, like I'm a control freak,
Uh,
right? I have a tendency to want to control things. So we've created an identity. And in the English language, two of the most powerful words that we have is I am. I am, and whatever the heck comes after it.
hmm,
So I want you to think, everyone watching, think for a minute, where are we placing that? So I am what? What are we saying to ourselves all the time? So if I've created an identity around being an anxious person, I'm going to have to live, in accordance, in alignment to the identity I've created for myself and keep feeling anxious. And so what I'm doing is I'm strengthening the muscle of an anxious person. I'm not strengthening the muscle as someone who's able to self regulate and to calm myself down and to bring safety into my body.
Mm.
right? I'm not like we said earlier, excitement and anxiety, the same thing, different filter. Does that
I
make
see
sense?
that 100%. Like, I'm just, like, seeing that distinction so clearly,
Mhm, mhm,
and you're spot on, like, it's as soon as I never thought of myself as an anxious person, which is, again, it's just an identity, it's not really who we are, um, and then when I had that awakening, it was like, okay, like, I spent so much time in therapy and, like, taking meds and trying to get rid of the anxiety, did, like, shock therapy, all kinds of things, and so you're totally right, there's this part that from that time of life that thinks, okay, if you let go, you're gonna get into the same trouble you did before. You're gonna say the same things you did. You're gonna push people away like you did. And so
mhm.
it's definitely the protector, like wanting to make sure I never end up there again.
So who's the version of you who's still, oh, because I mean, everything you said there, recognizing of like really being able to control the things that we think we can control, and using that anxiety now as almost like a modulator. It's like, who
Mm,
am I if I'm not anxious? Like, who am I if I'm not overthinking? Because there's a sense of control that happens if I can analyze something, or if I can really think through something. There's a sense of control there,
right. And
right?
who I am, I'm like, I'm 100% present. Like, I'm no longer the person. I'm no longer the story.
You're beyond mind, you're beyond that, but we keep re-identifying with it. And then it
Right.
creates almost like a switch loop. So you might find like, oh yeah, I'm meditating, I'm doing really well, everything's great in my life. And like you said earlier, something quite profound, and I think this is really relevant. Like just before something good's about to happen, then it kicks in again,
Mm,
because it's showing me what I care about. And a lot of these emotions show us what we care about. So we're focused
okay.
just on the negative aspect of it, like I'm losing sleep, I'm having bad dreams, I'm focusing on that. But it's also showing me like, hey, this is something brand new. I really care about this new amazing business venture that I'm going on. I care about it, and that's why I'm feeling this way. But for you, creating an identity or reiterating it. So even when we're doing all the right steps, we're doing all the things, we're feeling really good, we're feeling really calm, maybe we're afraid when something good happens. We've been conditioned from early years. When something good happens, it can get taken away.
Yes.
So just as we become like avoidant of the bad things, we can also start to become avoidant of the good, yummy things in our life, because
Interesting.
we're like, oh my God, if I have it, I have more to lose. And that's kind of
Absolutely.
scary.
All right, Tristan, we're gonna do an exercise here. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, go, let's do
Yeah.
it.
100%. Yeah, it's that fear of success, and I
Yeah,
think that you identified the root there. It's the fear that it's gonna go away, and I think our parents' generation, anyway, really maybe unconsciously, but they ingrained that belief that nothing lasts forever. I heard
it's too
that a
good to
lot
be true. You said that
too.
earlier as well. You were like, "Oh,
Mm,
it feels too good. This feels too me feeling safe in my body feels too good." Like how so we're robbing ourselves because we feel like it's too good. If it's too good, it won't last. So I need to modulate it. I need to like
mhm,
just have the right amount. And again, if you look at like the root of the
mm,
addiction is needing to fulfill something. I need something. I'm using this thing that doesn't actually get the need met. But what about the need? That the need doesn't go away. We're switching it for other things. We're
yeah,
interplaying with what it is, as opposed to like what we just did right now is, what does this feeling in my chest, does it need a hug? Does it need reassurance? Does it need a nap? Is it hungry? Like just take a minute with yourself and try and see what is the need behind, so that little fire that the smoke alarm's trying to bring your attention to, what is that? And what's the most conscious way we can have it met?
wow. Now what is that, Tristan?
What, the need or the way to
The
do
way,
that?
the way.
Okay. So I think cultivating self-awareness is one of the it's pivotal to, I think, all self-development is, oftentimes we may not be able to intercept a thought or a feeling or a habit.
Mm.
But that awareness, even if it's retrospective, the awareness of it helps to bridge that gap. So if I'm aware of, hey, I have a resistance, like when I'm feeling anxious, I reach for, I'm going to take your one, the remote control for the TV. It gives me, like, I am in charge of what I'm watching. There's a sense of control there. Okay, so I'm needing that. I'm needing something, needing control. Okay, so what is that? And starting to really investigate. And again, we can do this in the mind, but the mind is actually the servant. We always, so often we're using it as the master. The mind is the master.
Uh,
Your body has so much wisdom, right? It's the storehouse, the subconscious, the memories, everything's stored here in the body. So when we're using the mind to come into the body, like that's how, if I was to describe what is that self-awareness, self-awareness isn't just thinking, like having the voice in your head and you're thinking about it. It's using the mind to plug into the body, to take the mind on an adventure into the body. So a tool that I use for this, which is amazing and it's life changing, it's called clean language. So we did just a tiny little bit of it earlier when I said, is it warm? Is it cold? Is it still? Is it moving? What that does is it allows you to sort of map the metaphor. For example, I'm really struggling. I overcame. It's an uphill battle. We're talking in metaphors all the time. Okay. So just think of it from a, like, what are some things that you're saying to yourself a lot of the time will give you a reference of, like, oh, that's really heavy, man. That feels really heavy. That's
mm,
it's intense. Metaphor. It's intense. Okay. It's a lot. Okay. So we're talking in these metaphors. So when we catch that in our mind and we start to go in, okay, so where in my body am I feeling the heaviness? Okay, maybe it's like on my shoulders.
always.
Okay, so
Yeah.
here I've got this heaviness here on my shoulders. What color is it?
Whoa. Hmm.
Don't overthink it. First thing that comes to mind, this is we're going into the body. So that heaviness that we're carrying in our shoulders, what color is it?
I think there is a color. Maybe black or red.
Black or red, okay? And is it heavy? Is it light? Like, what's the weight?
It's like it's like restricting. It's almost like like a boa constrictor.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Okay, like a boa constrictor. Oh, damn. Okay, so like we're being squeezed. So now think of that metaphor for a moment. That's a story that we're telling ourselves. So
mm,
or everyone watching will have a story about anxiety. Okay, anxiety feels like an elephant on my chest, or it feels like a boa constrictor constricting me. This like, oh, there's so much intensity. We all have a story, and we're going to have symptoms. The body's going to respond because the body doesn't. The body's relying on our senses, right? It's like it's relying on how we're perceiving information from our external world to like figure it all out. So the language of the body is feeling the same way the language of the mind is words. So now we have this metaphor. This metaphor is going on in the mind. But what's stored in that? So we're going to have symptoms. If there's a boa constrictor, what am I going to feel? How am I going to breathe? You're going to breathe easy when you're being squeezed by a boa?
mm-mm.
It's going to be pretty tight. Yeah. The heart rate's going to be beating. My adrenaline's going to be going. It's going to feel pretty. And like, how resourceful am I when I'm being squeezed by a boa?
Not
Like, do I have
so
like,
much.
no, I'm being
When I w-
squeezed. I need to just.
yeah, when I got squeezed by a boa, I couldn't do anything. It was
You
very.
really got squeezed
No,
by it, like, for
no, I'm just
real? Oh, there we
kidding.
go.
No,
Well, I was like, "Yeah, that's the origin of that trauma there."
yeah, right. No wonder you're so anxious, dude. You almost got killed by a
You got
boa.
squeezed by a boa, like, gotta work on that one. So, by doing this, by understanding going in and asking yourself, so with clean language, it's called clean because you're asking yourself non-presuppositional or non-guiding questions. So, how big? How small? Is it still? Is it moving? I'm not telling you it's big or it's. I'm not giving you in your brain information. You're going in and you're kind of navigating through your own landscape, your own metaphorical landscape. So everyone at home can try this as well. Maybe get a piece of paper or something, write down, and when anxious, that's like what? Okay, so when anxious, that's like what? So for me, it's like the feeling of having an elephant stuck on my chest.
Okay.
And that triggers my asthma. So I'm so used to not being able to breathe. So anytime I feel tightness in the chest, it's I can't, I'm going to die instantly. And we all have that thing. But when you go into the story, so for example, for you, when the boa is constricting, what would you like to have happen?
When the bow is constricting, what would I like to have happen?
Hmm.
I'd like it to go away.
You'd like it to go away, okay?
Yeah.
And when it goes away, what would happen?
Oh, you feel good again. It's like, yeah.
Okay, what does it feel like to feel good? What's that like?
That openness. Like,
Openness.
I think, like I said earlier, for me, I can come back into like like it's behind my eyes because I'm no longer my focus gets to then focus on life again instead of going back down and focusing on the thoughts. It's almost like I dissociate a little bit. And as soon as that
Mm,
anxiety goes away, it's like I come back to present. It's like, oh, okay. I can engage with the world again without this filter of
mhm,
fear and anxiety.
mhm.
So
But we're doing that by trying to come out of it. I want it to go away, which is the resistance again. I'm resisting it, right? So if I go in behind my eyes and then I come out again, then it feels like the anxiety can go away. I need to be out to be able to see.
yes.
Okay. But that feeling of safe was that feeling behind your eyes. So where is your presence when you feel safe?
Wow. It's like it's hard to describe. It's just there's like no attention anywhere, but it's everywhere at the
Oh,
same
I
time.
love that. Yes, yes. So that
S-
oneness,
That
wholeness.
there it is. It's that oneness. It's like
Mm,
you can feel every part of your body, uh,
mhm,
and then at the same time, you can see the outside world. You can feel the energy from the outside world, and there's no separation anymore.
So everything's just integrated. So that feeling, in order to practice that feeling, we can't be resisting anything because as soon as you resist even the thought, you're back in separation. You're
Okay.
back in that tug. Can you feel what I'm saying here? We're
Yeah.
back if there's a resistance even to so the boa starts to relax when you relax into. So I'm being squeezed. I'm
Mhm.
literally being squeezed right now. Okay. And I soften my breathing, I soften my muscles, I relax into it, and the boa lets go. Does that make sense? So we're
Yeah.
going into the actual because as soon as you're like the bow is constricting, the bow is because I want to get it away, I want to get it away. It just squeezes tighter because I'm tensing,
Yeah.
tightening my body.
And
Does
as
that
soon
make
as you
sense?
said that, and I accepted it, it just yeah.
That weight, like your your shoulders looked a bit more chilled there for a
Okay.
sec.
And all
So
the that excited emotion just
mhm,
like it just bubbled up. It was like this like aliveness came up, and I was like,
mhm.
"Nice." And then as we're talking now, the fear came back. So it's definitely
So
like
this
a back
is
and forth thing.
so so well, this is the thing, right? Is it's gonna keep looping because there's still the resistance. I don't want to feel anxious. Don't think of a pink elephant. Don't think of a boa constricting you.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel anxious. I want to feel that oneness. I want to feel the wholeness, right? So the anxiety. So I love this. I'm going to go a little quantum physics here for you because I think you on the same vibe, right? Nothing exists in a vacuum. So if anxiety exists at a 10 in this moment, then calm, peace, wholeness, oneness exists in exactly the same moment, right?
Whoa.
But all of our focus, all of our attention is on the anxiety.
Ah,
As
right.
soon as you step, and that's that moment where we step back into presence. That's why I love going into the metaphor, because as soon as we go into the metaphor, it's like I am not the story. This is a story that I'm telling myself.
Right.
I am the observer of the story. Just by mapping it out, oh, here's a boa. Oh, the boa is constricting me in this way. But I'm looking at it.
Mhm.
That brings you back to the paradox. So when we're in paradox, you're going, okay, so I feel anxious at a 10. But if this exists, then oneness, wholeness exists in exactly the same moment. Exactly the
Okay.
same moment. Does that
So a
make
question
sense?
it does,
Yeah.
and a question for you, Tristan. So reversing that, and I think this is
Mhm.
where I lose that oneness presence is because my mind goes, well, if oneness presence exists, then so does anxiety.
But it does. So what do you need in order to accept that anxiety? So okay,
Mm.
currently, what is your belief around anxiety?
That it only exists if that it doesn't exist in the present moment. And basically, I can sum this up by I listen to too much Eckhart Tolle. I think
I
that's
love
I
old
love Eckhart
Eckhart.
Tolle, but maybe he's a little too enlightened, right? Maybe.
So like how do we bridge the gap? So like I said to you earlier, so he's managed, I mean, you can notice like when you watch him talking, he's so calm and he pauses for like a super really long time, right?
Yeah.
He's conditioned his nervous system to be in a parasympathetic, no, like he's completely in his zen. Okay. And so you trying to achieve that from survival mode, you're gonna keep defaulting because
Wow.
you're looking at him going, I should be zen and like so present and not feel like you know that this cliche quote. I'm going to throw it in here just just for some fun. But the courage isn't the absence of fear, right? It's having the fear. You have the anxiety. The anxiety is there. You're recognizing it's not a bad thing. It's not something that's trying to take you from oneness. It's saying, hey, dude, for this moment, you in your mind a little bit too much. You're in the future a little bit too much. That's okay. That's human nature. Come back here and chill with me in the chest for a minute. Let's take a breath. It's
Yeah.
this like a guiding back, a guiding back. Anxiety is not bad. It's not something we need to be afraid of. It's not something we need to resist or push away.
Oh, that's beautiful. It,
Seeing like little ding, zing, zing.
um, what came to mind? So Alex Huds, if you're still watching, he does dating coaching, and what
Ooh,
came up was that analogy, right? Like when you're teaching guys how to go out there and talk to women, the courage comes from like, they're not going to feel good doing it. Like it's not pleasant, but they do it anyway, and that's and I you see a lot like a lot of guys don't want to ever do it because you're like, "The anxiety has to be gone before I can go and approach." They call it approach anxiety.
yeah.
And what you teach is like, no, like, the approach anxiety may always be there,
Mm.
but you learn
You
to
do,
just,
you
like,
override.
override it, become one with it, and
Mm,
not take it and my first thought was to say not take it so seriously, but there's, like, almost like a little negativity there. It's I
mm,
like better, like, what you've been teaching me today is, like, you make love with it.
mm. Yeah,
It
bring
it
it all in.
yeah,
Yeah.
and even when you're in those calm zen states, like, you go up to a woman, you're talking, and it's just like you're flowing, you guys are vibing, that anxiety will always still be there, so I think that's a really important point, and I think that's gonna I'll
And
let you
it's
know how that
excitement. It's excitement is right. Like we said right at the beginning of the conversation. Like I'm walking up to a pretty girl, I'm going to feel pretty excited, and the anxiety is coming through the filter of I'm going to get rejected. She's not going to think I'm handsome enough. Like and I'm playing the same way I'm going to die. I'm going to die is playing over, and this affect. So I do a lot. Actually studied quite a bit of Russ Jeffries, and that sort of just for intersect to I really love to understand how the male mind works because it's so vastly different to how a woman's mind works. And we're very emotive. Women are very feeling based. And so your state of being is and anxiety is just a state of being, right? Like I said earlier, we create this identity around it, but then essentially we're in a state of being. And the state of being becomes so familiar that we think it's who we are. And a lot of the work that I do is actually being able to build and tailor create states. So, like we did there with you, just to give you the taste of seeding the feeling of safety, like safety in all those parts of you being at home. That we then build into a state and create a new anchor. Like you'd created sort of control as an anchor, as like an unconscious default. You're creating that as a conscious anchor. So it could be like, I'm about to walk up to this pretty girl, and then I have a gesture that I do. Maybe it's like I bring my hands together, maybe I place my hand here, and I'm anchoring the state that I have allowed myself to rehearse so many times in my mind. That feeling of like, the more I am myself, the more open I can be, the more receptive other people can be to me. Right. But that, if you're not consciously designing that, you're just defaulting into what's more normal, which is anxiety. That's the most familiar thing is feeling like we're so used to feeling anxious. when we're met with a new experience, like I said earlier, because survival mode says, hey, this is not safe. We don't know what that
Mm.
predator is. They could eat us. And by predator, I mean lady, gorgeous lady over there in the red dress. Okay. So,
Which we kind of want. So yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
other podcast, but yeah, you
another
want.
podcast. I want the predator to want me, but in my mind, the metaphor, the story, right? And it's interesting because when you like you can go so wild with this because even when you're feeling anxious, there's often a feeling of like a small, helpless feeling to that. Is like
Yes.
I can't that comes with it. It's like a defeated, almost like a smallening feeling. And so we want to go, okay, so if I'm strengthening that other muscle, what does the other feeling feel like? If my body doesn't know what to access, it's gonna default.
Mm,
It's going to just keep reverting back to what's most familiar. So, like you said, I get into that oneness feeling, feels so good, but then anxiety can come up in the next moment. So, what is the middle? What is that other state where it's not this or that, it's this and that? So, I don't have to be totally blissed out, Zen, come just from my meditation, but I also don't have to be like having insomnia and freaking out or, being a nervous wreck. So, what is that state where both can exist? And start to play with what is that metaphor like? Like when I'm both calm and excited.
mm, mm.
Does that make sense?
That's a really good feeling. That's that bliss out
Yeah.
feeling. Like you're like, oh, I can
Yeah.
do this.
Give
I
me
think
more.
I think where it gets tough is where there's the calm with a little bit of anxiety, like where it's sitting like kind of right here. Like I
Mm.
felt that right now. Like it's like I was listening and all of a sudden it was like, oh, you have this thing you got to do at 10 o'clock, and just like I just felt this like rush of just like this pain is whoosh, and
So
just like
why is it pain?
well, that's a really good question. So it was pain because I resisted it. But since you've been teaching me this, as soon as I recognized like don't resist it, it dissipated. It just went
It
up
was
and
like it was like a little notification. You've got something on
yeah.
at 10 o'clock. Oh,
Oh,
bam, notification.
it's a great analogy. You get the little ping.
You get a little ping. You get a notification. So for example, like I notice my anxiety goes up just before debit orders go off. Not because like I have gotten to a state that there's more than enough, but because I'm so conditioned to like in the past things bouncing, that as soon as it comes time to it, the anxiety comes up. What is the anxiety saying? It's saying, "Hey babe, everything's good. Like everything let's just double check. Is everything gonna go off? Yeah, everything's gonna go off. Then it goes away.
Mhm.
It's come up. It's like go back to the smoke alarm, right? If you check, maybe that's a tiny little fire. It's not such a big deal, but you're ignoring it and you're imagining a bonfire. You're imagining that the entire house is burnt down without even checking the tiniest little spark from your gas stove.
Yeah.
So obviously you're going to spin out,
Uh-huh.
but as soon as you so you're like, okay, here's the feeling. It's coming up. What's the feeling? I think a lot of times it's that, like you said, there was a judgment you placed. You were like, it's pain.
Mm,
Because the framing is if I'm not feeling calm and zen, then it's bad or it's
right.
not good. No, it's just different. Just a different feeling, right?
Oh, that's amazing. And the gosh, yeah, and the fear came up. This I see this clearly now. Like my pattern has been when that anxiety comes up, I won't allow it to run its course to dissipate like it did in like 2 seconds until I resolve what the notification, right? And
Oh,
what's stressful about that is sometimes you don't get to resolve that for years down the line. Like it's just practically like, okay, this ain't gonna happen for a while. Or like in this case, like, oh, this won't happen till like 10:30. So in a sense, part of me, maybe that controller part, which gotta love as well, the controller
mhm,
has not given me permission to feel peace until I get the task done. And I think
mm.
that comes coming full circle to when I wasn't responsible. So I would just let things, build up and I wouldn't get my chores done basically. And then at the end of the day, I would feel terrible. So it's, I think it's trying not to allow, it doesn't want me to go back into that mode of irresponsibility.
So this, I think here, I know we're almost time wise. I'm mindful of that. The thing to be clear of here is you can't go backwards but we also can't stay, because that hyper controller, like, even though we've given him such a great role, like, he's there, he's making sure you're not getting high all day and like not getting your shit done. Like, that's, we're so grateful to him. Like, he's on top of, he's the guy that organized this thing. Like, he has got all his ducks in a row. Like, we don't want to mess with him. He is great. Okay. But we do want to create a state of being where he's also allowed to enjoy the process. He's also allowed to feel a sense of peace and accomplishment, even if a task isn't fully complete. He's allowed to feel good about himself, um, even if something's not perfect or 100%. Okay. And so, if, remember what you've done, like, so much amazing work to get you from where you were to where you are right now, like, that all had to occur. But I want to just sort of leave you with this idea of that, this new version, that's an integration. Because what we tend, so essentially all the work that I do is about alignment, right? So what is that alignment? Alignment isn't about being perfect all the time. It's not about having your ducks in a row all the time,
Mm.
like this work life balance thing, right? Imagine someone on a slack line. Have you ever seen someone tightrope roping? If you look at them, they're like, oh my gosh, look how zen they look. They look so balanced. Like, wow, that's amazing. If you look closely, every muscle in their body is recognizing that I'm tilting a little to the left,
Yeah.
and then it's working to bring them back to that place. And it's
Yep.
every step. It's not like while I'm on the line, um it's always a constant flux and flow, right? So it's not this, like, balance gives the illusion of everything has to be zen, like, I'm going to get to a place where everything's perfect and amazing. Okay. But
Yep.
really, rather thinking about it like, okay, so what can I control? My thoughts, my
Mhm.
words, my feelings, my intentions. Those are the things I want to cultivate more control over there.
Mm.
I want to check my nervous system so that I'm activating and practicing what it feels like to be in my parasympathetic nervous system, right? My divine creative mind. I want to practice that as much as possible. Meditation, somatic tools. What can I be doing that's making sure that I'm cultivating that mode? And then checking when these sensations coming up, what is it, the texture of it, the color of it? Go into play with the feeling, right? Without that judgment label that we tend to like good, bad. So if the control is not there, then I'll be a mess. No, what's that other version of you? That
Mm.
other guy that has both.
That's gonna make a great clip right there. Just that sums it up beautifully.
Awesome.
Oh,
Yay.
oh, man, this has been fantastic, Tristan, and I wanna thank you
My
for,
pleasure.
showing up today, for giving me this space to do this work. I'm gonna be a little selfish here. Yeah, this was very powerful for me,
So
and I
glad.
really appreciate you helping me, guide through this, and hopefully as well, anyone who is watching and anyone who watches in the future. I think this is beautiful work, and it's what's needed in society right now. I think the world's starting to recognize it, right? Because the money, the relationship, the food, that is
Yeah.
never gonna to heal you. It'll give you a good start, but it really comes within. So this has been fantastic. Would love to have you on again at some point to
Love to be
do this
on.
talk. The parts therapy stuff's amazing. So guys, you will not. This is not the last you'll see of Tristan.
Woohoo! Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching, and thank you, Joel, for just being so vulnerable. Like it, I think we need more of that in today's world. Everyone's hiding the fact that they're hurting or in pain, whatever it is, and actually, we're all experiencing, like the same sensations. I'm sure there was a lot of people watching that also feel like a boa is squishing them when they feel anxious. So, yeah, just thank you for showing up so vulnerably today as well. Thank you for
You're
having
welcome.
me. So
You're
great.
Where
I'll
can
see you
people
all
find you,
soon.
Tristan? If they want
Sure.
to.
Perfect. So I'm on Instagram, the Life Aligned Academy. I've also got my own YouTube channel, Life Aligned Academy. And then I've got a new course out at the moment, which is all about getting to know and reframe our emotions and becoming our own inner wayfinder. So, yeah, the link to that is on my YouTube channel as well.
I now know what you mean by that. It's clicking.
Yes.
When I first watched, I was like, interesting. But Totally. You're
Yeah.
finding the way within.
You're
So
finding the way within. You got your own compass and your feelings, or even anxiety can be a little compass there for you. Like, hey, Joel, you got something on in a few minutes, so you better attend to that little
ah,
compass. You see?
yeah, love it. So yeah,
Yay.
guys, you can find Tristan down below in the comments or no, in the description. All her stuff will be there. Definitely check it out. Show some love. Show her YouTube channel some love.
Thank
It's taking off, and
It's
you
new.
you
It's
have a natural
fledgling.
presence on camera. So really appreciate it. Thanks
Thank
everyone for
you.
tuning in, and we will talk to you guys in the next one.